You guys caught me in the shop on the weekend again, working on my little projects here and there. This is a Toyota, and I've always said you need to buy a Toyota. We're going to show you why today. This is Mrs. Wizard's other car. Let's get started. So that's right, Mrs. Wizard has another vehicle she used for winter driving or muddy or bad driving, bad weather basically. We've had this one for a while. We actually did a video not too long ago. It was something we bought at Euro-Asian Bob's, and it's been a good little vehicle. Recently, a couple things popped up on it, and we're going to show you what we found and what the fix is going to be. But before we get too far into this, let's go take a look at the smart car. So as you can see, most of the interior is back together. Actually, pretty much all of it is. Out of the 3 issues that were reported with the codes, 2 of them have been fixed now. We've got 2 of them solved. Magic Mike has 1 more to go, and he's trying to dive in and find out where that is. And he's really been digging deep on this one. He actually has the Mercedes scan tool out, which is called StarScan. We have that here in the shop. This is a Mercedes-Benz vehicle, by the way, even though it's called a smart car. Mercedes-Benz makes it. So we're 2/3 of the way done. 2 strikes down, 1 more to go, and we'll have this thing figured out. Luckily, it does not need a new transmission. So let's head back over to the RAV4 and show you what's going on with that. So we actually got this for my oldest daughter, and she drove it around for a little while, and there's nothing wrong with it, or actually at the time there was nothing wrong with it. She just didn't like it. She says, I don't like this vehicle. I want a different one. Maybe that seems kind of weird, but for whatever reason, she didn't like the way it drove, she didn't like the way it looked or whatever, so it got passed on to Mrs. Wizard. She actually needed a vehicle for winter driving, for bad weather driving. She doesn't want to take her Maserati out and get slung all the underneath with salt and mud, and it's really not what that vehicle is intended for. We like to keep it in good shape as long as we can, because someday we will resell it, and when the potential buyer in the future looks at it and sees crap slung underneath the bottom, they're probably not going to give us top dollar. So we definitely want to keep that one clean. I was driving this the other day, and a whole slew of lights came on, a whole bunch of warning lights, and you would think that something major happened, some catastrophe. Let me show you guys the dash. So as you can see, it has a tire light, a VSC traction control, and a check engine light. So if you were just cruising around, you weren't mechanically minded, you would think, I've got a flat tire, my brakes are gone out, something's wrong, and something's wrong with the engines. Oh my goodness, something major has happened. And Toyota is so bad about this. I've mentioned this in the past that there are actually some manufacturers that choose different methods to get your attention when something minor emissions related happens. Some manufacturers like Toyota chooses to throw up the traction control light. Sometimes they'll throw up a brake warning light, and it could be simple as a misfire on cylinder 3 or something. Some vehicles I've been in, especially some of the Chevy trucks and things, they will actually turn off the air conditioner, and you can't have it back until you fix the emissions problem, where it could be a catalytic converter or a misfire or something like that. Something really that's not that big of a deal, but they go through and have power to take something away from you, whether you like it or not, and that really sucks. In this situation, I've already dived in and figured out what it was. Let me get my little scan tool and let's see what the code is in the check engine light. All right, this is my little quick scan tool that I use when a customer just drives up and says, my check engine light on. Oh, what is it? So let's take a look here. There we go. 3 codes. Let's see what they are. Read the codes. Evaporative emission system leak, vent control circuit, large leak, evap purge flow, small leak again. Actually, there's 8 codes, but some of them are just repeats of the same code. So all of this stuff is emissions, evaporative emissions. I've actually gone into the transmission control and the traction control module, and all they say is there's an error in the engine control module. That's it. That's a way to make you think the world has come to an end, but it hasn't. It does have some emissions evaporative issues going on, and it definitely got my attention. I thought something really bad had happened. Now, as far as emissions and government rules and laws go, something bad has happened. It's now leaking fuel tank vapors out into the atmosphere. But as far as your engine functioning and being able to drive down the road, nothing has bad happened. What we're going to do real quick today, I've already looked it up, and the problem is the charcoal canister. Let me grab the one I have. So on the Toyota charcoal canisters, when you buy one, it comes with purge valve, all these different valves, different things going on, not just the canister, it comes with everything. All the codes we just saw are all this stuff. So we're going to put this thing on the lift, and we're going to replace this thing. So here we are under the car, right in the middle, basically underneath the driver's seat is where the charcoal canister is located on this RAV4. I've got the 4 nuts loose to remove the shield, so I'll go ahead and remove that. There we go. And you can see where our old setup is. All these valves are bad. Basically, I just got to unhook some of these hoses, plug in some connectors, and put the new one on. So I actually have Mrs. Wizard holding the new canister with the myriad of hoses in front of me while I take this one apart. So that way I know exactly which ones to unhook and only unhook what I need to. Right now I'm working on these hoses that go back to the lines that go to the fuel tank. There's that one. And then there's these 2 little ones here. There's those 2. Then there's one more right here. And one electrical connector. So now I have all the hoses unhooked and the connector unhooked. We're going to go ahead and remove this one off the vehicle. So these bolts are really rusty. You need to make sure you're fully seated on the head of the bolt or it'll just round out and strip it out. So I've got everything unhooked. We'll go ahead and let this thing drop. I have one more small hose which unhooks right at the canister. Most of these I've taken off with pliers, but this one's, some of these old connectors get tricky. You just have to kind of get a small screwdriver and play with them. The plastic is so brittle. Kind of get the clips over the lip there. And there we go. So all of our problems on the dash, all those lights we saw, there was not a catastrophic failure in the engine. It's just this, the charcoal canister. Now that I have this thing off, I can smell fuel vapors. You definitely don't want to be smoking a cigarette right now, or playing with lighters, or shooting fireworks. Please don't do that. But now you can see why these things are on the cars. Without this canister, your entire garage will smell like fuel vapors. After a long drive, you'll just fill the whole thing with fuel vapors. So there's our old one. You guys remember when I go back together with connectors or hoses, I always use spray silicone. Put it on the barb fittings, on the electrical connector. It makes everything go back together without fighting so hard. Go ahead and bolt in this new canister. So those have been torqued to Wizard foot-pounds. You can look it up in the manual, and it's very precise, very perfect. I'm so worried about it that the whole car might fall apart if I don't torque a rusty old bolt on a charcoal canister. So now, the first thing we'll do is snap on the one that was so difficult to take off, and we'll hear it click. There we go. We'll hook our electrical connector back on. It goes to this little solenoid. That one clicked on nice. We'll go ahead and hook on this hose, this smaller one. One thing you can do when you're taking off a bunch of hoses like this is get a paint marker and mark where they all went so you can remember. These ones I remember just from looking at it, but it can be kind of daunting. That one. That one. So we got these two, the small hose, the electrical connector, the large snap-on hose, and we have one more that goes towards the back. I'll go ahead and hook that one up. Okay, so it's fully connected to the vehicle. All hoses are where they should be. The connector's hooked up. Now I'm going to put on my little shield. And there we go, all torqued again to Wizard foot-pounds. Always perfect torque. Let's go ahead and get this thing back on the ground. Everything is connected. The last thing we have to do is clear the codes and get those nasty lights off of there. So here we still have our 3 codes, which actually are 8 if you really go through and look at them. I'm going to erase the engine codes. I'm not going to even touch the traction control or anything like that. I'm just going to erase the engine codes only. Now it has no fault codes. Let's start the engine and see if at least some of our lights have gone away. So there we can see the only thing left is the tire light, and I know from checking that my front left tire is a little low. I'll add some air and that too will go away. But you saw the traction control ABS light went away all by just taking care of the check engine light, which was an emissions problem. There was nothing ever wrong with the traction control or the ABS. Don't be fooled by that. Sometimes you can just clear the codes and hope for the best, but that's definitely not going to take care of this situation, because probably within 2 or 3 drive cycles, that code will be back, along with the traction control light. Make sure you don't see an ABS or traction control light on and call your mechanic and say, my brakes are messed up, because they probably are going to sell you some brakes, and you didn't even need them in the first place. This was the only thing that was wrong. This has nothing to do with our traction control or our brakes. But the warning light was sure on to let you know something was wrong. So now we have this replaced all along with the valves and everything else that the codes were mentioning. That should not come back, and I'm pretty sure it won't because of the testing I did on this. But isn't that kind of strange, guys? An emissions device fails, but yet you get warning lights in other systems that are not even affiliated with this. So be careful with those. I got this thing 2 years ago from Euro-Asian Bob, and you guys know when I purchase a vehicle, I say don't fix it, don't do anything, I want it as is, and I get the cheapest price. But I also get a car with problems that are now my problem on my shoulders. So I had to go through and fix the brakes and a few other things on this. But in those 2 years, we haven't done anything. I don't even think I've done like 1 oil change. I've been really rough on this car. Kind of careless if you think about it. But even under that treatment, the only thing that went wrong is a charcoal canister. It starts every time. It gives us no trouble. The all-wheel drive system doesn't just fail on us. The engine doesn't make crunching noises. It just always works. Even though I've not been nice to this car, it still is faithful and works every single time. Right here, guys. Stop buying GMC Terrains. Stop buying the Buick Enclaves. This is what you get right here. And yes, you're going to pay more. You're going to find one that's going to cost 30% more than you budgeted. But you will lose those savings by buying an Enclave in repairs within the first year. And if you have fun cars like Mercedes, BMWs, Jaguars, things of that nature, you're probably already budgeting your yearly cost is going to be more than a Toyota. And that's just part of the ownership of one of those cars. But if you're looking for a car, you don't want to fool with it. You just want to drive it. This is definitely a brand to look into. So I'm glad you guys could follow along and we could do the charcoal canister on this together and find out that that's all that was wrong, even though all the lights said other things, or otherwise, I should say. If you're curious what tools we use in the shop or I just used on this vehicle, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. And make sure to hit the subscribe button because next week, hey, we have more cars scheduled, which means more videos. Thanks for watching.